And the next talk is about trials in heart failure. We have Dr. Gaurav Tripathi. I'd request him to kindly deliver his talk, please.
So I'll be summarizing all the evidences being discussed in last an hour about various drug trials, various drugs in role of heart failure with major ejection fraction. So this is a quick summary of all the things already being explained. Talking about HFpEF, we know this prevalence is increasing up to staggering 40 to 70% of actual heart failure cases, and the proportion is rising. Maybe by the next decade, heart failure will be with ejection fraction will be the main predominant phenotype of the heart failure. So therapeutic options for a patient with heart failure are limited, and similar to heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, drugs that attenuate the overactivation of endogenous neurohormonal systems have been attempted in various RCTs. So we need to understand the pathophysiology. We need to understand the various new targets beside HRF management. So Venugopal sir will probably throw light on the new targets of HFpEF next presentation. So and magnitude of the effect has been modest through in contrast to heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, where we see the big magnitude of effect with all these medications. But HFpEF, there only been modest reduction in event, that's too in subgroup analysis, and in not yet any mortality benefit. So we'll start from ACERB trials. Charm Preserve, the Charm Preserve 3023 number with ejection fraction of more than 40%. And substantial number of NYHA class 3-4 patients, and they were a follow-up for 37 months, and endpoint were cardiovascular death or heart failure hospitalization. So the modest 15% relative reduction observed in heart failure hospitalization only, and there were no reduction in cardiovascular or mortality. And although the problem was 20% of the patient were already having AC inhibitor event at the beginning of trial. And actually, the expected annual events were higher and lower than expected annual events rates of the primary composite outcome in the placebo group caused this under study to be little bit, not much of power to be significant actually. More next, PAP-CHF in elderly patients. There are 850 patient study with LV ejection fraction of more than 40%. And mean age was a little bit higher, that is 75 years. Followed up first 26 months. And primary endpoint was the same, cardiovascular death or heart failure hospitalization. No difference in outcomes after completion of study. Again, underpowered study, lower than expected event rate. Here we can actually understand the problem in recruiting these patients for ARB ACA trial, because they are most of the patients already on therapy. So discontinuation rate of 38% also observed at 18 months. There was no difference in after 26 months of study, but if you see at 1 year follow-up study, perindopril was statistically borderline significant, 31% of relative reduction in primary endpoint. So this is the point where most of the patients were already having perindopril. This is after where they actually started withdrawing from the trial, and the 38% loss to follow patients actually. So this is where actually at 1 year there was a significant effect, although not significant, but so in addition, significant improvement were observed compared with the placebo group in some other secondary endpoints as well, like including the proportion of patient in NYHA function class 1 and changes in 6-minute walk distance at 1 year. At the same time, when we having a maximum number of patients on perindopril therapy. Next is irbesartan iPreserve, again of more than 4,000 patients with LV ejection fraction of more than 45%. And substantial number of patients were in NYHA class 3-4. Sick patients, 79% were 3-4 patients. And for long follow-up of 49.5 months. And it's actually a more study cohort representing more of the real world data. Actually, the sicker patient and females were more in the data. So primary outcome was again death from any cause of hospitalization, cause or hospitalization for heart failure, myocardial infarction, anesthesia angina, arrhythmia, and stroke. No difference in primary or secondary outcome observed at all. There was no difference. So summarizing the ACERB data, only Carnazepam having some modest risk reduction in heart failure hospitalization, and perindopril, and that too in a subgroup where it was continued at 1 year follow-up. Look at the next data for Aldactone, more than 3,000 patients, that is 3,445 patients, and mean age was 69 years. Mean follow-up of 3.3 years. Primary outcome was a composite of death from cardiovascular causes, aborted cardiac arrest, or hospitalization for the management of heart failure. And primary outcomes were similar in two arms. The secondary outcomes were also similar except heart failure hospitalization, which was lower in treatment arm. More hyperkalemia, more renal failure were expected with the therapy of Alectone in treatment arm. We can see probability of primary outcome, there are not much difference. And heart failure hospitalization were some slightest of difference. So post-hoc analysis revealed a disparity in outcome between the centers actually. So North and South American patient where event rate was high, the benefit was significant. And those centers in Eastern Europe like Russia, they were event rate were low, effect was less. So this all nullifies the entire data. So there was some group, basically North American and Canada patients where it was due to higher event rate, significant benefit was observed in top-line study with Aldec in heart failure hospitalization. Talking about another study of Alectone Aldo-DHF, 4,422 patients, 12-month follow-up, improvement in echocardiographic parameters was observed, like mitral annular D by E dash, NT-proBNP parameters, geometric mean ratio was observed, and decline in LV mass index. These were the outcomes. So it did not improve heart failure symptoms or quality of life and slightly reduced the 6-minute walking distance with no effect on hospitalization. Peak VO2 also did not significantly change with spironolactone versus placebo. So once there was slight improvement in echocardiographic parameters, NT-proBNP, and some decline in LV mass index was observed with an Aldo-DHF study. Coming to beta blocker, Japanese DHF with carvedilol, less number of patients 245 and mean age of 72 years, follow-up of 3.2 years. And primary outcome was composite of CV death or heart failure hospitalization. So only 245 of the planned 800 patients were enrolled. So study was underpowered in the beginning itself, and 78% of the patients in the trial did not reach the target dose of 20 milligram per day. So most of the patients were in the 7.5 milligram per day doses, and no difference in the primary composite outcome was observed. Is the entire data, and when we can see no differences. But when we see those patients who were on standard doses in compared to low doses, we can see the differences in our outcomes. So in patient prescribed carvedilol more than 7.5 milligram per day, composite secondary outcome of cardiovascular death and unplanned hospitalization from any CV cause was significantly lower than in controls. But although again similar to the placebo. Seniors trial, another trial of it actually was not targeted to get a heart failure with pediatric ejection fraction, but 35% of the patient had LV of more than 35%. In overall study, nebivolol actually modest 14% reduction in the primary composite endpoint of death or CV hospitalization. So the proportion of patients with truly preserved EF, that is more than 50%, was small. That is only 15% of the total patients. So we can see a similar magnitude of reduction was noted in the subgroup with LVF more than 35%. These are the subgroup where we can see the patient of more than 35% ejection fraction. We can see the benefits of the nebivolol therapy. However, it did not again reach statistical significance. So these trials of beta blocker, carvedilol and nebivolol, although limited by sample size, have not demonstrated definitive benefits or harm itself on exercise and functional capacity, on diastolic or on clinical outcome in patient with HFpEF. Here comes a class which actually changed our armamentarium of heart failure therapy with reduced ejection fraction therapy, the ERNI class. So the first, there was some evidence of in Paradigm HF of benefit in HFrEF patient. So Paramount was the study where we studied first. So 301 patient with ejection fraction more than 45% and NT-proBNP more than 400 and with mean age of 71 years was included. So it was an active comparator. We have active comparator here, sacubitril/valsartan versus valsartan. So the study actually with placebo. Here we have an active comparator. So it was followed up for 36 weeks. Primary endpoint was again decrease in NT-proBNP from baseline to 12 weeks. Although the follow was up to 36 weeks, but the target was studying NT-proBNP at 12 weeks. So left atrial volume and left atrial dimension were significantly reduced, and NYHA class improved at 36 weeks in patient taking ERNI. So we can see a difference of NT-proBNP, which was significant at 12 weeks. Although NT-proBNP remained significantly reduced at 36 weeks as well, but compared with baseline, but the difference between the two treatment groups was no longer significant here at 36 weeks, while it was very much significant at 12 weeks. October 2019, when we have the results of Paragon HF, we have high expectation from this trial. 4,822 patient LV ejection fraction more than 45%. And again, with an active comparator of valsartan, followed up for 26 months. Primary outcomes here was composite of total hospitalization for heart failure. So So primary outcome component, secondary outcome including NYHA class change, worsening renal function, change in functional status were also assessed. We can see total hospitalization composite outcome were not different in the two arms. Total hospitalization for heart failure was although less with sacubitril valsartan compared to valsartan, but in death there were no difference between the two arms. So primary or composite outcome of total hospitalization for heart failure and death from CV causes did not differ significantly between the two groups. Modest, although statistically non-significant, lower rate of hospitalization for heart failure with sacubitril valsartan than with valsartan was noted more into two subgroups, basically women and patient with LVF of more than 45 to 57%. That is mildly reduced ejection fraction group. And change in the NYHA class from baseline to month 8 and occurrence of a decline in renal function favored sacubitril valsartan over valsartan. And between baseline and month 8, there was a mean decrease in the functional status, that is decrease of 1 point, that 1.6 point in sacubitril valsartan, 2.6 point in valsartan group. So after this, actually modest benefit observed with Paragon-HF, FDA giving clearance of approval of sacubitril valsartan for the use in heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Although there were no significant benefit in primary composite outcome observed, but since those subgroups where we were having benefit and some mild benefit in other parameters, made it to the FDA approval. Lastly, October 2020, when we have Emperor Preserve trial, which was the first trial actually which has benefit in composite outcome. So 5,988 patient LVF. So it was truly preserved heart failure with preserved ejection fraction actually. More than 2/3 patient were EF having more than 50%, follow up 26. Empagliflozin versus placebo, we know all these things. So there were significant difference between the primary composite outcome, composite of death and heart failure hospitalization. And talking about heart failure hospitalization, again, these were driven by the heart failure hospitalization direction. No difference in death events. So primary composite events were significantly different. Empagliflozin also led to a lower total number of hospitalization. The rate of decline in eGFR was slower in EMPA group. No difference in mortality observed, though. Benefit were observed across the range of subgroup, diabetic, non-diabetic. 23% dropout in both arms occurred. That's what actually might have caused the difference. Thank you for summarizing this data, letting me summarize this data.